The challenge? The Galactic Assembly had gathered on the neutral station of Arden Prime, where the greatest minds of the known universe showcased their latest technologies. This year, the Zalzareth, an ancient and proud species, unveiled what they called their absolute defense, a shielding technology so advanced that it rendered all physical weaponry obsolete. No force can penetrate it, declared High Technomaster Zalvok, his deep purple skin glowing under the artificial lights of the assembly hall. No energy, no kinetic impact, nothing can breach our shields. The room of alien dignitaries, generals, and scientists erupted in applause. For centuries, warfare had been dictated by who could generate the strongest force fields. If the Zalzareth truly had impenetrable shields, it would mean the end of war itself. Or so they believed. Until humanity proved them wrong. Enter the human observer. On the far side of the hall, among the countless alien species, stood one human. Sergeant Darren Cole of the United Earth Expeditionary Corps was assigned as a diplomatic observer. He wasn't a scientist. He wasn't a politician. He wasn't even a high-ranking officer. He was a soldier. A man who had seen what war really was, not just numbers in theory but blood, fear, and survival. And he had a very different perspective on the Zalzareth's claim. As the Technomaster continued his speech, Cole glanced at the massive shimmering blue energy field hovering above the stage. The unbreakable shield. Aliens marveled at it. Some reached out, only to be met with an invisible resistance that denied all contact. Cole's brow furrowed. Something wasn't right. He nudged the closest human diplomat. "We buying this?" The diplomat, a bald man in a tight-fitted uniform, gave a diplomatic shrug. "Their tech is far beyond ours, Cole." Cole wasn't convinced. He looked at the aliens' excitement, at the smugness of the Zalzareth, and at the absolute certainty in their voices. And something inside him itched. Because he'd heard impossible before. And it had always been bullshit. The test. One by one, alien dignitaries were invited to test the shield. A towering reptilian warrior from the Brackenar fired a plasma rifle at it, only for the bolt to dissipate instantly. A heavily armored Rigelian warlord swung an electromagnetic hammer, but the energy barrier didn't even ripple. The crowd gasped in awe. Truly perfect defense. One alien exclaimed. "Unbreakable." Cole narrowed his eyes. Unbreakable. He didn't believe in unbreakable things. And so, without fanfare, without permission, he reached into his side holster and pulled out his sidearm. A standard-issue M9 Beretta 9mm pistol. The weapon was obsolete by human military standards. Bullets had been replaced by railguns, energy pulses, and hypersonic projectiles. But it was still simple, reliable, and deadly. And it was about to humiliate an entire species. One bullet, one truth. The entire assembly turned as Cole raised his pistol. "What are you doing?" The human diplomat hissed. "Proving a point." Without another word, Cole aimed directly at the glowing blue energy shield. And pulled the trigger. The sharp crack of the gunshot rang through the hall. A single 9mm bullet flew from the chamber, and punched right through the unbreakable shield. The energy barrier shattered like glass, dissolving into flickering fragments before vanishing entirely. The bullet continued unimpeded, striking the wall behind it with a sharp ping. A moment of absolute silence followed. Aliens stared in horror. The Zalzareth Technomaster stumbled backward, his glowing eyes wide with disbelief. "No, that's not possible." Cole lowered his smoking pistol and smirked. "Guess it wasn't so unbreakable, after all?" The cracks in their arrogance. Pandemonium erupted. How? What trickery is this? What kind of weapon was that? The Zalzareth delegation was in shambles. Technomaster Zalvok furiously tapped his wrist device, scanning the collapsed shield. "This is a mistake. A malfunction." But the data didn't lie. There was no malfunction. Their technology, built to resist energy, plasma, and advanced kinetic weapons, had been completely bypassed by something primitive. A solid metal slug. A simple bullet. Because the Zalzareth had focused on defending against advanced attacks. But they had never considered something as old as a basic firearm. And that single oversight had just shattered their greatest achievement. Cole holstered his gun and smirked. "You were so busy thinking about the future, you forgot about the past." The weight of humiliation. The news spread instantly. The Zalzareth's greatest technology, their ultimate shield, had been undone in seconds by a human with an ancient gun. The footage played across the galaxy, viewed by warlords, diplomats, and military strategists alike. Some laughed. Some panicked. Some reevaluated everything they knew about humans. Because if a 9mm handgun could defeat an impenetrable shield, what else had the humans figured out? The Zalzareth fled the assembly in disgrace, their reputation in tatters. But humanity? Humanity had just proven something far more terrifying. They didn't need superior technology to win. They just needed to find the one weak spot you didn't see. And they always did. The echo of a gunshot. The Zalzareth had left the assembly in humiliated silence, but the damage was already done. A single 9mm bullet had torn through their supposed absolute defense, and the galaxy had witnessed it all. For the first time in centuries, the idea of superiority by technology had been shaken. Every major species, warriors, diplomats, strategists, and scientists, watched the footage of Sergeant Darren Cole's shot again and again, searching for an explanation. What had just happened? How could something so advanced be defeated by something so primitive? The answer was simple. The Zalzareth had built their shields to withstand plasma, lasers, ion disruptors, kinetic railguns, all the advanced weaponry of modern warfare. But they had completely ignored obsolete ballistic projectiles. Because in their minds, no species in the galaxy still used them. Except for humans. The panic begins. As the news spread, reactions across the galaxy varied. The Goran Imperium, a species of 8-foot-tall reptilian warriors. The humans never ceased to surprise. Their technology is primitive, but their minds are dangerous. The Virsheri Union, a collective of scholars and researchers. A mere mechanical slug? It bypassed the shields entirely? How did we overlook this flaw? The Urok Swarm, a hive-minded insectoid race, known for their brute force tactics. Humans exploit weaknesses. If they can do this to shields, what else have they found weaknesses in? But no reaction was greater than that of the Zalzareth Empire itself. Their technomancers, scientists, and military leaders were thrown into chaos. The absolute defense shield was meant to be their ultimate weapon, the crown jewel of their military dominance. But now, it was a laughingstock, and that was unacceptable. The threat from the Zalzareth. Deep within the floating capital of Vornok Prime, Technomaster Zalvok stood before a council of furious Zalzareth High Lords. The chamber was dimly lit, illuminated only by the blue glow of the advanced technology surrounding them. Zalvok bowed, his voice trembling. "My lords, I assure you this was unforeseen." One of the High Lords, Vraktal, leaned forward, his bioluminescent eyes burning with rage. "Unforeseen? You promised us absolute defense, Zalvok. And yet a primitive human weapon, a metal slug, reduced it to nothing." Another lord slammed a fist onto the table. "This is not just a technological failure. It is a humiliation. The entire galaxy mocks us." The Zalzareth Empire had never known humiliation before. They had always been revered, feared, respected. But now, thanks to one human soldier, they were a joke. And there was only one way to erase humiliation. "The humans must pay," Vraktal hissed. "We must make an example of them." Humanity's response. The United Earth Council knew what was coming. Ambassadors from across the galaxy had already sent warnings. The Zalzareth would not let this embarrassment go unanswered. The question wasn't if they would retaliate. The question was when. Inside the war room of the United Earth Defense Command, high-ranking generals, strategists, and scientists analyzed the situation. "They're coming," Admiral Holt said, his grizzled face unreadable. The room was tense. Though humanity had proven resourceful, they were still one of the younger species in the galaxy. The Zalzareth had fleets that could wipe out entire planets. Their weapons outclassed human technology in almost every way. Except, humans didn't fight like the rest of the galaxy. Where other species relied on sheer force, energy weapons, and overwhelming numbers, humanity had one thing that set them apart. They thought differently. They adapted. They improvised. And they found weaknesses where no one else did. Sergeant Cole, now something of a celebrity among Earth's military, leaned back in his chair and smirked. "So they're mad, huh?" General Westwood, a no-nonsense woman with cybernetic implants, nodded. "Mad enough to start a war." Cole stretched. "Then we better remind them who they're dealing with." The room fell silent. Then the Admiral spoke. "Prepare our forces. And tell R&D to start thinking like a soldier. We're going to find more weaknesses." The Zalzareth invasion plan. Back on Vornok Prime, the Zalzareth war machine was already in motion. Their plan was simple. Destroy one human colony as a warning. A planet called Haven's Reach, a small but thriving settlement, was selected as the target. The High Lords believed that if they obliterated a human world, the rest of their species would submit. They had severely underestimated humanity, because they weren't just going after a colony. They were stepping into a trap, one that humans were already setting. The invasion begins. Above the quiet planet of Haven's Reach, the stars shimmered in the darkness. For the colonists below, life continued as usual. Farmers tended to their crops in artificial soil, children played under the twin suns, and traders conducted business in bustling markets. They had no idea they were about to become the center of the galaxy's deadliest conflict. Because high above, hidden beyond the system's asteroid belt, the Zal-Zareth Armada had arrived. The Zal-Zareth fleet, a show of power. The Zal-Zareth did not do subtlety. Their war fleet was the largest ever deployed against a single target. 500 capital ships. Thousands of fighter squadrons. Planetary bombardment cannons capable of turning a world to ash. Inside the flagship Viazeroth, Grand Marshal Zalvor observed Haven's Reach with cold satisfaction. Weak. Defenseless. This will be over in an hour. Their plan was simple. 1. Surround the planet. 2. Disable communication. 3. Demand surrender. 4. If refused, wipe it from existence. The humiliation humanity had caused them would be erased with fire and devastation. Or so they thought. The first mistake. As the Zal-Zareth fleet moved into formation, a strange signal pinged their scanners. A single human warship. Small. Outdated. Barely worth acknowledging. Zalvor sneered. Pathetic. They send a single ship against us. He turned to his bridge officers. Disable it. Show them how futile resistance is. A squadron of 20 Zal-Zareth interceptors swooped toward the lone vessel. Their energy cannons charged. And then the human ship disappeared. What? Where did it go? Before the Zal-Zareth could react. Boom. One of their frigates exploded, torn apart by artillery fire from nowhere. Boom. Another ship went down, its shields failing instantly. Panic spread across the Zal-Zareth fleet. They were under attack. But they couldn't see the enemy. And then, the entire asteroid belt came alive. It was never an asteroid belt. It was an ambush. Hundreds of human warships decloaked, their hulls camouflaged with rock and debris, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. This wasn't a desperate defense. It was a trap. And the Zal-Zareth had walked right into it. The second mistake, underestimating ballistics, again. The Zal-Zareth fleet scrambled to return fire, but their weapons struggled to lock onto human ships. They had spent centuries perfecting energy-based warfare, but the humans were using something different. Mass driver cannons. Not lasers. Not plasma. Pure, unfiltered kinetic devastation. Massive metal slugs accelerated to incredible speeds, impacting with the force of a nuclear explosion. Zal-Zareth shields designed to absorb energy were useless. Because these weren't energy weapons. A human battleship, the UES Thunderchild, fired its main gun. A 500-ton depleted uranium slug ripped through a Zal-Zareth dreadnought like paper, shattering its hull in a single impact. Another destroyer exploded as railgun rounds punched through its engines. The Zal-Zareth were experiencing true fear for the first time in their history. Their greatest weakness had been exposed again. And the humans were exploiting it mercilessly. On the ground, a different kind of war. As the battle raged in orbit, Zal-Zareth drop pods slammed into the surface of Haven's Reach. They thought the colony was undefended. They were wrong. Waiting for them were human marines, dug in, armored and ready. Among them was Sergeant Darren Cole. He crouched behind a barricade, gripping his rifle as the sky rained enemy troops. They just don't learn, do they? A private next to him chuckled. Guess not, Sarge. As the Zal-Zareth forces charged forward, expecting an easy fight, Cole gave a simple order. Light 'em up. And then, the humans fought back. The fleet burns. The Zal-Zareth Grand Armada was supposed to be unstoppable. But now it was dying. Zal-Zareth warships tumbled through space, their mighty hulls shattered, their energy shields worthless against the relentless barrage of ballistic firepower. On the bridge of his flagship, Grand Marshal Zalvor watched in horror as ship after ship exploded. How? How is this happening? He gripped the armrest of his throne with his clawed fingers, his mind racing. We are the superior species. We have ruled the galaxy for centuries. These primitive creatures should not. Another shockwave rattled the ship. A railgun round had torn through the engine deck. They were losing. And the humans knew it. The ground war ends in fire. The Zalzareth invasion force had expected a slaughter. But the only ones being slaughtered were them. Sergeant Darren Cole led his Marines through the shattered Zalzareth landing zone, stepping over the twisted remains of dead invaders. The once feared Zalzareth warriors were scattered, panicking, desperate to flee. One of their officers, a high-ranking war priest, collapsed to his knees as his guards lay dead around him. You are demons." Cole lowered his rifle and tilted his head. "No, we're humans." And with that, the last pocket of resistance on the planet was wiped out. The message to the galaxy. As the surviving Zalzareth warships fled, a single transmission was broadcast across every known system. The Zalzareth claimed to be gods. They claimed to be invincible. They claimed to rule this galaxy. Today they learned the truth. They were never gods. They were never invincible. And their rule ends now. Humanity stands free. And we will never kneel. The entire galaxy watched. The most feared empire had been shattered, by the very species they called weak and primitive. And the message was clear. Humanity would never bow. Epilogue: the new era begins. The war was over. The Zalzareth, once the most dominant force in the galaxy, had been broken. Their remaining leaders sued for peace, desperate to survive. But it was too late. Humanity had risen, and the galaxy would never be the same again. A final message to the Void Narratives viewers. Collision like this story? Want more epic sci-fi? Red Circle subscribe to the Void Narratives for more HFY tales, thrilling battles, and the best sci-fi adventures. Fire, join the fight. Join the future. Join us. Rocket. Click subscribe now.